You can modify our recommendation as a board, and we will follow along accordingly. But we did feel that we needed to advise you on our new learnings over the past 2 weeks, catch you up on this, and let you know what our recommendation is at this point in time.
Dr. Herrera? Oh. Dr. Herrera?
Yes.
I want to say, I don't know who's got their hand up or whatever, and I'm sorry if I'm out of order or whatever. I want to thank you for coming forward with this, being transparent, coming to each one of us and calling. But I do agree that we do have a meeting after school is supposed to start back. And this is why I made the attempt to talk to my colleagues and send 3 emails out requesting that we have an emergency meeting so that when we got to this point today, this could have been voted on and a decision would have been made instead of waiting. So where I'm at right now is I agree. The numbers are climbing. And, we've got cases in Farmington Hills like no other. Where I'm at right now is I do believe that we do need to do something and not let these teachers and these parents think that their kids are going back. Students of teachers have already signed up for probably daycare or whatever, and we've got everybody sitting limbo. Like you said, you've been working with this and seeing these numbers climb for the past 2 weeks. I've asked for this discussion as early as of last week so that we as a board could come together and work with you to shut this down because like it's being said, we won't have another meeting until
Ms.
after
Smith,
school
point
is
of information.
open. Just a second, Mr. Rich, I'm still speaking. So at the end of the day, where I'm going,
point of order.
Just a second, please. At the end of the day, what I'm asking for, because see, this is the problem. You all don't listen to listen. You listen to defend. And I'm trying to make a point. And the point is there should have been more conversation like what Dr. Herrera is doing. And then we wouldn't be here and waiting until the next meeting or just putting this on him in his lap to make this decision, or board members that are not comfortable with doing this tonight. So I'm just saying to you, Dr. Herrera, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for reaching out, and thank you for being transparent.
Madam Chair,
I think you're on.
Thank you. That point of information was just to let Ms. Smith know that we are voting on this tonight. It was added as an action item. I believe you might have still been trying to get into the meeting at the time. I just wanted to let you know that.
Yes, also, Mr. Rich, Dr. Herrera said that during his talk there, shared that has now been approved as an action item for the board. So, is there other comments by board members, questions?
Yep, I have a comment.
Weems.
So, one, thank you for bringing this to the board. I think across the board it would be helpful if we had a little bit more clearer understanding on the decision-making process with respect to the plan for continuing remote, right? So in August, we approved a plan to start the year remote with the understanding that we would begin phase-in in October, after October, and then agreed that we would start K through 5 November 9th, and we did not vote on that because it was still part of the original plan. It was sometime shortly after October 30th, and then we took action on the secondary plan, which is 6 through 12, not to return until January 25th. So I think it is helpful for us to understand, the points at which we would make that decision. So last week, the district made the decision to pause from November 9th to November 16th. That made complete, total sense to me. I think we should allow the superintendent that flexibility to make the calls, similar to, you know, any other event like a school closing for snow, right? You know, that's not a board decision. The superintendent normally makes that decision. If, though, we get to a point where, you know, again, our plan called for starting phase in after October 30th, if the plan, you know, suddenly calls for months afterward, you know, January, February, March, I think it does make sense to bring that back to the board as an action item. I would suggest, though, that, you know, no different than what we usually do. We bring a recommendation in, and then we have an action item in the next meeting, or as part of our ordinary process now, whereby we're required to reaffirm the continuity of learning plan every month, that would just be the point at which we would have those discussions. But that's just my thought. I do appreciate all of the thought that's gone into this, and I also know that there's been a fair amount of discussion with the Oakland County Health Department, and a lot of recommendations sort of coming from that, and they've had an opportunity to weigh in. So I appreciate all of that.
Yep. And I think we're all saying the same thing. I, again, certainly respect the board's, your willingness to, you know, not just lay this on the shoulders of the administration, but work with us to come to an agreement and approve either our recommendation or a modification of our recommendation. The part we haven't experienced yet, and I guess that's part of when we're asked about the mechanics of this and when we come back and when we don't come back, and the art of that is, remember, we haven't been in person yet. So that's going to be a whole new process if we're in person, as we work with the health department to determine the extent that we close for a short period of time, a longer period of time, or we close, you know, at all. So that's the hard part for us to describe, because it's going to be situational. It's going to depend on the spread of the virus within the school system. And we know now that even though the health department isn't going to weigh in and close the school, but we may be forced to close the school now because we can't operationally support in-person learning because of our workforce and the pandemic's impact on all of our adults and students outside of the school system. So that's what's complicated this even more so, moving to an E. We haven't been an E before, and we haven't, well, at least as we've been in school, and we haven't experienced this rapid rate of folks being quarantined and exposed to the virus. So that's been the whole new learning for us on this is, what do we do now? How do we figure this out? How is this going to impact us? And that's been our work over the last week and a half, quite frankly. So you know, I certainly wish we could have got this information to you last week and made a decision. But honestly, we've been learning every day for the last 2 weeks on this. And I would like to thank Oakland County Health Department. They have taken the position that they're not going to close schools, which, you know, politically, I guess a lot of people would have their own opinion of that. But they have taken the position that they will endorse our return to school and say they believe the plans we have in place are safe for staff and students to return. So we're still going to submit our plan, because eventually we know we're going to want to return or have an opportunity to return. And we want to make sure that we have that endorsement from Oakland County Health Department when we are ready to come back in-person learning. But we're just, you know, unfortunately, the cabinet and the COVID response team and the wellness committee and the unions, none of us really believe that we can operationalize this. We all have concerns about workforce, and we have concerns about disrupting families with another start and stop. And we have concerns about what it's going to do to the staffing and scheduling by, once again, restaffing to try to accommodate our needs for actually a very short period of time until 1/11. So again, the other piece I would like to acknowledge is, I know we have a lot of parents who want their children to return, and I know this is not going to be good news for them. We do want them to know that we've considered what this means to them. We know that they have a desire to have their students in-person learning, And we look forward to the day when we can do that. But considering all the perspectives on this and all the things we need to consider, we just don't believe it's in the best interest of the entire school community to bring folks back right now. So we will still continue on working on addressing the needs as we have at the secondary to provide additional supports for kids and their families the best we can during the remote learning. But in the end, you know, this is our recommendation at this point in time. And again, I don't want the board to feel guilty for wanting to move this to an action item on their part. You know, it's not in your plan in terms of doing that, but the administration, and I don't think the school community is certainly offended by the fact that you want to take ownership and be responsible for that decision. So don't feel like you're getting in our way on this.
Thank you, Dr.